With the Abish's help, today's daf is daf Hey in Masechta Gittin. We will begin on the bottom of daf Daled Amud Beis, and it's 4 lines from the bottom, and the Mishnah it begins from Tanan. Okay, so we are discussing a very interesting case. The Mishnah started with this case. A man brings a get. A husband wrote a get from Medina Sayyam, and from a faraway country, and the shliach brings it to Eretz Yisrael. So Chachamim made a takana when the shliach brings it to Eretz Yisrael. After he gives it over to the woman, right after he has to say the following declaration: "In front of me, this get was written. In front of me, this get was signed." Now, why does he have to say such a declaration? So we learned that the shita of Rava was that the reason is, and everybody agrees with this opinion, that we are afraid that the husband is going to come from Medina Sayyam, from wherever he lives now, and he's going to come to Eretz Yisrael and he sees his wife married to somebody else, and he's going to say, "I never wrote a get." So, and therefore he's going to make and say that the whole get was forged signatures. There's no people like that. There's no Eidim. So by giving the power to the messenger who got off the boat and brought this get to the woman, once he says this declaration, b'fani nechtam, he's so powerful that even if the husband comes and says, "Oh, I never wrote the get," we don't believe him. That's the power of the shliach to say that the people that signed on this get are real people, and there's real edim on this get. That's the reason of Rava. Comes along Rabbah, and he said there's another reason why he should say that declaration. And the reason is because we are afraid that the get was not written lishma. In other words, when the sofer has to write a get, he has to know who he's writing it for, who he's writing it for. And because he's writing this get, because the people in Chutz La'aretz did not know the concept of lishma, we are afraid that the get was like something bought in a farm store, like you buy a ksuba and you just filled in the names, and therefore it's not a kosher get. A kosher get has to be written from top to bottom, lishma, for the person of the husband who's divorcing his wife. So that's why Rabbah said there's another reason, an additional reason. He agrees with Rabbah, but there is additional reason of why. There's an additional reason why you have to say b'fani nechtam, because we're not sure if the people who wrote the get in Chutz La'aretz are writing it kahalacha, writing it lishma. Okay, so here we begin the Gemara. Daf Daled Amud Beis, 4 lines from the Mishnah, 4 lines from the bottom. Tanan, we learned in the Mishnah, maybe get Medina Siyam. Someone brings a get from a faraway country to Eretz Yisrael. And here's the problem: the shliach brought it, gave it to the woman. All of a sudden, he cannot utter the words from his mouth that in front of me this get was written, in front of me it was signed. He can't say it. So what are you going to do? So it's very simple. In Yeshal of Eidim, if there's another 2 Eidim that recognize the signatures of the people that signed on the get, so that means that they know that the people that signed in the get were not computer-generated signatures. They're real people who signed on the get. They have a recognition to the signatures. So yiskayim b'chaismav. So the solution is that you verify the signatures, and the get becomes kosher. Okay, so it's a kosher get. You can give it go over to the woman without the declaration of the shliach saying b'fani nechtam. So now this was the Mishnah. We asked the question on the Mishnah. What does it mean? A man comes, gives the get to the woman, and cannot utter a statement before nechtam. We go to Daf Yomi. What's the case? It's talking about somebody who's deaf. In other words, let's call him a shaita, an imbecile. So there, that cannot be the case of the Mishnah. Can a cheresh be somebody that came from Medina Siyam to Eretz Yisrael on a boat to give a get to a woman? A cheresh can never be a shliach in the first place. How is that possible? That somebody a man made a cheresh or an imbecile, a shaita, to his be a shliach. But Tanan, we learned in the Mishnah, a koil kashem lavi as a get. Everybody is kosher to bring the get to the woman. Everybody is kosher to be a shliach. Chutz except mecheresh shaita v'katan. A cheresh shaita v'katan, a young kid under bar mitzvah or an imbecile, cannot be a shliach. So that what is the case that shliach brought the get? It's a kosher shliach, but he can't utter the words b'fani nechtam, b'fani nechtam. The Amar Rav Yosef. So Rav Yosef explained the Mishnah. Our Mishnah is discussing Kagoid Shanasnu Laki Shehu Pikeach. He gave it to her when he was sane. Okay, so the shliach gave it over to the woman when he was sane, and then he's supposed to make this declaration either Toich Kedei Dibar right away, or even a few minutes afterwards. He can say B'fani Nechtam, B'fani Nechtam. V'lai Hispik Loime B'fani Nechtam, B'fani Nechtam. He didn't have the time to say B'fani Nechtam, B'fani Nechtam, Action is Choresh, until he became, let's say, Loyalenu, became insane. He had an aneurysm, or something went wrong in his brain, and now he cannot utter the words B'fani Nechtam, B'fani Nechtam. So what's the solution that the Mishnah said? That bring other Edom, and let the other Edom say that the people that signed on the get are kosher people. I recognize the signatures. These are real people that signed on the get, and it's a kosher get. So the Gemara says, Li Rava Nicha. According to Rava, that solution solves all the problems. Why? Because what's your whole problem? That you're not sure if they're real people signed on the get? So then you solve that problem by bringing Edom, and Edom say that I recognize these signatures. So that solves the problem of verifying that they are real people that signed on the get. But according to Rabbah, there's an additional problem. Kashya, we have a difficulty. Why is that a solution? We're always concerned that the get was not written in a kosher way. How do you know it was written lishma? So why is this a good get to give over to the isha, to the woman? So answers the Gemara, and here we're discussing la'acha shalamdu. Even I was talking about that as they became more informed, and the people of Chutz La'aretz became more informed, and they finally understood that there is a halacha that is a get is supposed to written lishma. Oh, so therefore I don't need the shliach anymore to say it was written lishma, because I can assume that everybody became more learned, and even people living in Chutz La'aretz understood the drasha chazal, the cost of law, that a get has to be written lishma. So the Gemara's question is, ihachi, if the case, if times have changed, that the people in Chutz La'aretz are now more informed, that we can assume that the get was written lishma, yochel nami. So then why is it that even if he could say b'fani nechtam, why don't we always use the solution of get Edom to verify the signatures? And so why would we want a shliach to say b'fani nechtam? Because I'm not concerned anymore that if it wasn't written lishma, because you're telling me that as generations passed, the people of Chutz La'aretz understood the concept of lishma. So the Gemara says the fabulous case, the fabulous statement. We are always afraid that maybe it's going to come back to its original destruction. In other words, we are afraid that they're going to close down the yeshivas in Chutz La'aretz, and people are now going to become misinformed back again and thinking that there's no din of lishma anymore. So once they established the gezerah, once they established the halacha that when a shliach brings a get, he has to say b'fani nechtam to verify it was lishma, it always has to be the case. He always has to make that statement that b'fani nechtam. And if he does not make that statement, we're not going to say that this is a kosher get, even though we can assume it was written lishma. But Chazal said once we require you to say b'fani nechtam, that's it. So the Gemara says, if that's the case, eino yochel lami. Eino yochel lami means that even if he cannot say, why do we say that in this case, the guy became insane, could not say b'fani nechtam, so we have a solution to get around the problem. Why is that good enough? Once Chazal said you have to say b'fani nechtam to verify it's lishma, so it will never become a kosher get unless the shliach does that. In this case, the shliach does not do that. Answers the Gemara, here is the exception. Chazal said in this particular case, Chazal waived the that the obligation to say b'fani nechtam, b'fani nechtam. Why? Pikeach, somebody who's sane, and then after giving the get, v'nischarish, she becomes insane. Milsud lo yishchichehi. Milsud lo yishchicha legozer barabanan. Something that's so uncommon, Rabbanan didn't make a gzera, and therefore this is such an uncommon case where a person went insane right after he gave the get. So we're gonna waive the rule that he had to say b'fani nechtam to make it a kosher get, and we'll just make it a kosher get by just getting Adam to verify the signatures. Says the Gemara, Isha de loishchicha. Let me give you a case. A woman bringing a get from Medina Siyam is also not common. Women never traveled. So a woman who is in Medina Siyam is acting as a shliach to come to Eretz Yisrael to bring a get for a wife. That is a woman who's it's not common that she should be a shliach, and therefore utnan. But nevertheless, we learned Isha asma maybe a get if a woman herself brought a get. She also has to say b'fani nechtam if the get will not take effect unless she gets to Eretz Yisrael. So then she has the obligation to say b'fani nechtam. But that's such an unusual case. So why is it that we require b'fani nechtam when the woman herself is bringing a get? Answers the Gemara, that we wouldn't want to differentiate between messengers. We want to make one rule that all messengers, whether it's common to use this person as a messenger or not, all have to say b'fani nechtam. That's the rule. The only exception to the rule is that if the shliach turns handicapped and can't say b'fani nechtam, we're not going to say that this woman who he gave the get to cannot use the get. We're going to say that it's a kosher get, but we'll get another way out of it. So and then we'll just waive the obligation of saying b'fani nechtam because there's nothing you can do about that case. So the Gemara asks the question, one final question: if that's the case, that every shliach, every messenger that brings a get for his wife has to say b'fani nechtam. So Baal Nami, what happens if the husband brings a get from Medina Siyam? He comes to Eretz Yisrael and he hands a get to his wife. So the get was written Medina Siyam. The husband himself is acting as his own shliach, and he gives the get over to his wife who's leaving in Eretz Yisrael. So he's a shliach, and so if you're saying all shlichim have to say b'fani nechtam, Allah matanya, why did we learn in Brisa who achmei shevi get? If he himself brought the get, ein sarach laima b'fani nechtam. He doesn't have to say b'fani nechtam. Why not? He's a shliach, and all shlichim have to say b'fani nechtam. And says the Gemara, this husband is the other exception. The time of my Omer Rabbanan, why would the rabbis require that a person say tzarach laima b'fani nechtam? What was the original reason why a shliach should say b'fani nechtam? Dilma osi baal ma'arul pasale. Maybe the husband has come and is going to come up with a story that this is not a get. Either he's going to say, these people that signed in the get are not real, I never wrote a get, or he'll say the get was written, but it's not kosher, it wasn't written lishma. So, but that was only if a shliach, a regular shliach brought the get. If the husband himself is holding the get in his hand and giving it over to his wife in Eretz Yisrael, is he going to make a whole trumped up story about it? He's not going to do that. So therefore, he himself that brought the get from Medina Siyam to Eretz Yisrael is not required to say b'fani nechtam. Tashma, come in here. Another story. And again, we're trying to ask a question against Rabbah. Rabbah said that in addition to the reason b'fani nechtam to verify signatures, right? The reason why you say b'fani nechtam is because people in Chutz La'aretz don't know how to write a get. Some of them don't know the halacha that it has to be written lishma. So the Gemara asks a question. The Boyim Menei, Shmuel Rav Huna. The Shmuel asked the question for Rav Huna. Shnayim sheviu gittin in Medina Siyam. Two people that brought a get from a foreign country. Srichen sheyomru b'fneinim nechtam b'fnei nechtam or ein srichen. If two people came as shluchim, right? Two people were on the boat from Medina Siyam to Eretz Yisrael, and they're both holding on the get, and they're going now in Eretz Yisrael to give the get to the woman. So Shmuel asked from Rav Huna, do we require that these people to say b'fani nechtam? Amalei, so he said ein srichen. They don't have to say it. Because mal ilu yoma b'fnei negersha mi lo yebehamne. Wouldn't they not believe if they would have said that this woman got to get? If they would have come and said that this woman got to get in Medina Siyam, or they could have said stam that she got to get. We believe two people. So if they're just giving over the get to her, we will not require those two people to have a chorus together saying b'fani nechtam, because we can assume that it's a real get and they're real people signed on the get. So the question is, l'Rav Anicha, that makes sense according to Rava. The whole point of saying b'fani nechtam is to ascertain that this get was really written. The Rabba Kasha, but according to Rabba, who tells you that the get was written lishma? Just because two people brought a get, how do you know it was written lishma? So why don't we require two people who are the shluchem to actually have to say b'fani nechtam? Answers the Gemara, the reason why these two people don't have to say b'fani nechtam, because in the time of Shmuel, who asked this question from Rav Huna, everybody in Chutz La'aretz, everybody became informed with the halacha that it has to be written lishma. So people in Chutz La'aretz wrote the get in lishma. It was not a problem. We're not worried about that. If so, chadname, if there was one person that brings a get, so why didn't Rav Huna make a new law? Nobody has to say b'fani nechtam. Either you could iskayim mechaisma, but if even with one, we're never assuming that people in Chutz La'aretz are writing a get shlei lishma. And says the Gemara, that maybe in Chutz La'aretz it will come back to its original destruction, and therefore there will be a time when it will not be written lishma. So therefore, they always kept the law the same. One shliach that brings a get from Medina Siyam has to say b'fani nechtam. So the Gemara asks, "Yihachi beitrei nami." So then, when there's two people that are shluchim, they should also have to say b'fani nechtam. Answers the Gemara, b'nei trei demaisigita milsa delayshchicha. Two people bringing a get. Now, why would a person make two people his shlicham? So if the fact that there's two people who are the shliach to bring the get to the woman in Eretz Yisrael is something that's not common. Something that is an unusual case, the Rabbanan didn't keep their obligation, and therefore when two people bring the get, they don't have to say b'fani nechtam. So now we know two cases of milsa d'lo shchicha. One case is when the guy one shliach gave a get, and now he became insane. So therefore, it's still a kosher get because it's a milsa d'lo shchicha that unfortunately he can't say b'fani nechtam. And the second case is when two people are the shlichem and they bring the get to the woman. It's waived the obligation to say b'fani nechtam. Says the Gemara, is all cases of milsa d'lo shchicha waived? If the woman herself was a shliach, she has to say b'fani nechtam. But that's unusual that a woman should travel and become a shliach and for her own get, and yet you require her to say b'fani nechtam. So we see that even things that are not common, you're requiring b'fani nechtam. And says the Gemara, shloi tachlit b'shlichus. Again, we're saying the thing. But once she's a shliach, we want to make the rule that all shlichim have to say b'fani nechtam. Only if they're one person, then all shlichim have to say b'fani nechtam. But if there are two people as a shliach, then we're going to waive the obligation to say b'fani nechtam. Ihachi, says the Gemara, Baal Nami. If the Baal brings his own get and he's the only shliach, why don't we require him to say b'fani nechtam? Alom Tanya. Why did we learn in the Brayso? Who atzma she'begita ein tzarach loy b'fani nechtam? He himself brought the get. He doesn't have to say b'fani nechtam. So the Gemara says it's very simple. The whole reason why you have to say b'fani nechtam is dilma asi bal ma'aro pasle. The husband is going to say that it's not a valid kosher get. But hashta minka nakale b'yadei, if he's the one bringing the get from Medina Siyam, the get was written in Medina Siyam, and he's on the boat and brings it to Eretz Yisrael and gives it to his wife, he's holding it in his hand. Is he going to make a whole story that it was a puzzle get? Of course, he's not going to come back and say it's a puzzle get. So therefore, we waive the obligation to say b'fani nechtam if it's the husband himself bringing the get. Tashma, come in here. Hamevi get me Medina Siyam and Usanaloi. The guy brought the get from Medina Siyam and gave it to her. Okay, he gave it to her in Eretz Yisrael. He didn't say the statement b'fani nechtam. So the Gemara says, the Mishnah says, the Brayso says, in the sky, let's say the shliach disappeared. So if you find two other Eidim that verify the signatures, it's kosher. Vim lav, puzzle. If you can't find, then to verify the signatures, then the get is possible. So have a like the Brisa concludes and says the whole reason why b'fani nechta from a shliach is required is only it was only to make it easier for you, that you don't have to find two people to say that it's that the signatures are valid. All you need the shliach to say that these signatures are valid. That's but in case the shliach disappeared and didn't say b'fani nechta, you can still make it a kosher get by getting two eidim to say that they are valid signatures. Okay, so here we have a case where a shliach did not say b'fani nechtam, and yet you're saying it's a kosher get. L'Rava nicha, l'Rabba kasha. According to Rava, this is good, because what's the whole point of b'fani nechtam? It's to verify that they're real people signing on the get, and you verified that. But according to Rava, you always difficult. You always find the difficulty is how you're going to know that the get was written in a kosher way. How do you know it was written l'shma? So answer the Gemara again. After they was taught. Says the Gemara Ba'amrit, but didn't you say didn't you always afraid that even after they were learned that they have to say b'fani nechtam because it may turn back to its old ways. And here you're pashering a get, even though the shliach did not say b'fani nechtam, but the Chachamim required b'fani nechtam. So how are we going to let this woman get away with not having the shliach said b'fani nechtam? And says Gemara, the exception is kishinisas. If she got married and with this get, okay, it's already ex post facto. There's nothing you can do about it. Is that the reason why we're saying that, we're waiving the obligation for nech in this case? Is because the whole point of b'fani nechtam is to make it easier for her? Is that the real reason? Mishum denizasu. The whole reason why that we're waiving the b'fani nechtam in this case, Bryce's case, is because she got married. So why didn't the Bryce say that's the real reason why we're waiving the b'fani nechtam because she got married? What are you going to do? Pull her away? And says the Gemara Hachi coming. Yes, that's exactly what the Bryce means to say. She got married, and the Bryce is saying Let's be machman her and say, you got to get from a man, from a shliach, and he didn't say b'fani nechtam, and you got married again. Get divorced from this guy. Then we're not going to do that. The whole point of b'fani nechtam is to make it easier on her, not to make it strict that she has to divorce somebody if she got married again. And we go to Amud Beis, time of my dilma asabal ma'aram pasule. The whole reason why we require b'fani nechtam is maybe the husband will come and make a whole story that's a pasul get. But if she got married already and the husband's not around, the original husband that sent the get is not around to make a story, so we're not going to pull her out of her second marriage. Are we going to make this error over here and make the whole story? We're not going to pull her out of the second marriage because she got married again. We're just going to say, okay, there's no shliach to say b'fani nechtam. Just be mekayim b'choismav. You got married again. We'll let you slide that you didn't have to say b'fani nechtam. The Gemara continues. Beplukta the Rabbi Yochanan and Shua ben Levi. Rabba and Rabbi Yosef, Rabba and Rabba are the same machlokes Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Shua ben Levi. One said, Lefi she'ein bekin l'shma. One said the whole reason why you say b'fani nechtam is in addition to verifying that it was actually written, you have to verify that it was kosher because the people in Chutz La'aretz don't know that the idea of l'shma. The Chadam, one said Lefi she'ein edim mitzuyin l'kaima. The only reason why you have to say b'fani nechtam is because we don't know. There's no edim that are around, and we're afraid that the husband is going to come and say it's a fake get, and therefore, in order to verify that the people that signed the get are real people, it wasn't a computer-generated signature. That's why you have to say b'fani nechtam. So the Gemara says we don't know who said what, Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Shua ben Levi, but we know one said because of Shema, and one said because ein edim mitzuyin the kaima. So to Stayim, I'm going to prove definitively that Rabbi Shua ben Levi, who the Amal Lefi she'ein bekin l'shma. Rabbi Shua ben Levi was the one that said ein bekin l'shma. Why? Rabbi Shimon ben Abba, I say giti l'kaimi to Rabbi Shua ben Levi. Rabbi Shimon ben Abba brought a get to Rabbi Shua ben Levi. Rabbi Shua ben Levi lived in Israel. Rabbi Shimon ben Abba probably lived in Bavel. He came to Eretz Yisrael, and in front of Rabbi Shimon Levi, he asked him a question. When I'm giving this get over to a woman, I was the shliach. Do I have to say b'fani nechtam? No, you don't have to say b'fani nechtam, because by Amrit Ela b'darish Rishonim, only in earlier generations they had this rule of saying b'fani nechtam. She'ein b'kim l'shma. Many years ago, the people in Bavel didn't know about l'shma. But now, the Bekin Lishma, now we know about the concept of Lishma, and people in Bavel know about Lishma. No, you don't have to say this time, that's a perfect proof. Rabbi Shimon Levi was the one that said Lafi Shem Bekin Lishma, and Rabbi Yochanan was the one that said Ein Eidim Mitzvah L'Kaima. So the Gemara just wants to clarify the case. What do you mean? This Rabbi Shimon Levi told Rabbi Shimon ben Abba, don't say b'fani nechtam. But Tizbra, does this case make sense? But Rabba Islay the Rabba. Rabba would hold like Rabba. In other words, that even if you hold Ein Bekin Lishma, still you would have to verify and say b'fani nechtam just to say that the signatures are real. So, and there's no Eidim to ratify and verify that this is a real get. Void harminas sem yaksu davel kekulan. Even in the time of Rabbi Shimon Levi, even that Bavel knows about Lishma, but why aren't we always afraid that maybe there'll come a time again when the whole thing will get messed up and people in Bavel will not know about Lishma anymore? So why did Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi tell him, oh, you don't have to say b'fani nechtam? The answer is, there's just one part missing to the story. Rabbi Yeshua ben Abba had another person with him, and therefore there was two people that brought the get. And therefore, since two people brought the get, Rabbi Shimon ben Levi said, listen, Rabbi Shimon ben Abba, you don't have to, both of you don't have to say b'fani nechtam. Why didn't we mention the other guy in the story? Why does the story just say Rabbi Shimon ben Abba himself brought a get? Why didn't it say Rabbi Shimon ben Abba and somebody else brought the get? And says the Gemara, Rabbi Shimon, because of the honor of Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon was such a special person, we're not going to mention somebody else's name in the story, but really there were two people in that story that brought the get, and therefore it was raised the concept of saying b'fani nechtam, because it's milsa d'lo shchicha that two people should be a shliach for a get. But we see from this story is Rabbi Shua ben Levi had the reason of b'fani nechtam was because ein bekiyan l'shma. One last piece of Gemara. Itma. We learned in the Brisa. When the guy gives it over to the woman, in front of how many people does he say b'fani nechtam? So the Gemara says, Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Chanina, when he gives it over to the woman, he has to call two other people and say, I'm giving this get to this woman. I'm the shliach. B'fani nechtam. But he has to be two people there. And one says, three people have to be there. So the Gemara says, "Tistayim the Rabbi Yochanan hu da Amar b'fnei shnayim." I'll prove it to you. The Rabbi Yochanan was the one that said it has to be given over in front of two people. The Rav bar Chizda Aisegita l'kamed Rabbi Yochanan. Rav bar Chizda brought a get in front of Rabbi Yochanan. Okay, va'amalei, and Rabbi Yochanan gave him the halacha. You're a shliach, Rav bar Chizda. Zil havlei ba'apitrei. Go find another two people. The aim of the hu b'fani nechtam, and then give it over to the woman in front of two other people. You say b'fani nechtam. This time you have a good proof that Rabbi Yochanan's opinion is that the shliach has to find two people in front of two people. He gives over the get to the lady and says b'fani nechtam. You don't need three people. So the Gemara says, so now you have a machlekes in front of how many people you have to give the get over, in front of two or three. So the Gemara says, I'll tell you, maybe this is the argument. The one that says you have to give over the get in front of two people, because they don't, because of the reason why you have to say b'fani nechtam is because the people of Chutz don't know about l'shma. And therefore two is enough. Two is enough by declaring that it's kosher, that it was written in a kosher way in front of two. That's enough to make the shliach. We believe the shliach. But according to the opinion that you need three people standing there, the whole reason he holds the whole reason why he's saying b'fani nechtam, there's no edim to verify the signatures. We don't know if there's actually edim that's signed on this star. So to make it a kosher star, you have to do it in front of a bezdin. You need three people. So the Gemara says, wait a second. The Tizbara, for Tisbra, this whole thing doesn't make sense. Comes out that Rabbi Yochanan, who said you only need two people, he is the one that holds L'fisha Ein Bekin L'Shma. But in the previous story on the top of the page, we said that Rabbi Yochanan holds Ein Eidim Mitzuyin L'Kaima, because we proved you proved that Yeshua Belevi was the one that said he holds Ein B'Ki L'Shma, and Rabbi Yochanan Amal Fisha Ein Eidim Mitzuyin L'Kaima, and Rabbi Yochanan was the one that holds Ein Eidim Mitzuyin L'Kaima. So over here, how come Rabbi Yochanan could say in front of two people? Rabbi Yochanan holds that the reason why b'fani nechtam is funny nechtam is lefi shein edim mitzuyin kaimai. But another, furthermore, even if you hold of ein b'kin lishma, you should require three people. Why? Because ein b'kin lishma is an addition to ein edim mitzuyin kaimai. And Rabbi Islay the Rabbi holds of Rabba's reason that you need to first verify that actual edim signed on this get. So you should always need three people. So answers the Gemara, that's not the machlekes over here. Machlekes is different. Everybody holds that the reason why you are saying b'fani nechtam is because you're verifying it's a kosher get. It's not a fake signatures in the bottom of the get. The shliach himself, can he be part of the three people? Everybody holds you need three people. But if you bring two people, maybe the shliach himself, by being an aid, a witness, he'll now become a dayan to stamp this get and saying it's a real get. The one that says b'fnei shnayim in front of two people, that he holds that the shliach can become an aid then can become a judge. And therefore, the shliach says, and then he turns around and joins the other two, and now they're a group of three, and they put their stamp on this get that it's a kosher get. There are real signatures here. But the others that say b'fnei gimel, he holds shliach nasa aid, ve'ein aid nasa dayan. So he holds no, an aid can, once you're a shliach, you cannot join to become the judge. So the Gemara says, why not? Anything that has to do with a din derabanan, and here verifying a get is only a din derabanan, because we can assume that their signatures here, it's only a chi of derabanan to do so. The aid nasa dayan. When it comes to that, we should always be lenient that the aid could become a dayan. So why doesn't everybody hold two should be enough? The shliach himself should be part of the three that stamped this document. Ella, so why does one require three? Ella says the Gemara, this is the argument. Sometimes a shliach, the isha, a woman could be the shliach. So maybe if the woman's going to be a shliach, if you're going to say all you always need is two to say fani nechtam, when a woman says fani nechtam, she can't join and be part of the bezdin to stamp this as a kosher get, because a woman cannot be a judge. And they're going to rely on her to be a judge. So therefore, you always have to bring three people. The one that says two is okay, Isha made the yadiv like samchile. When a woman is the shliach, then they'll bring three. Everybody knows that you can't use a woman as a dayan. So therefore, when a man brings a get, it's enough to have two people. So one last piece, Tanya Kavos Rabbi Yochanan, it's exactly what Rabbi Yochanan said. Hamevi get me Medina Siyam. If a man brought a get from Medina Siyam and gave it to her and didn't say b'fani nechtam, the shliach gave it to her, and she went ahead and got married to somebody else, but she had a get that the shliach didn't say b'fani nechtam. Yoitzi bavlad manza de Rav Meir. Rav Meir says, oh, you scream at her, you force her to get a divorce from marriage number 2, and the child that was born is a mamzer. The Chachamim say ain't a blood mamzer. The blood's not a mamzer over here. It's a real get. Kate said, Yasa, what should you do to straighten out the situation with the second marriage? Yitlenu amenu, you take it away from her. The Yachsav yitlenu, and you give her the get b'fnei shnayim. The yomer, and the two people say b'fani nechtam. They should say b'fani nechtam, and that they verify the signatures that the people that wrote the get are true. So we see that you say that the shliach, all he has to do is say in front of two people. The shliach should say it in front of two people, and that's enough. You don't need three people to say it in front of two people is not enough. So the Gemara asks the final question. Rameir has such a strict opinion that if the shliach forgot to say b'fani nechtam and the woman got married again, then the child is a mamzer. Why not? Why can't the shliach come back and straighten the whole thing out by saying b'fani nechtam? Why are we so strict and say no? That second marriage was illegal and the child is a mamzer. And Rab Meir is very strict when it comes to marriages and stuff like that. Rab Meir l'tamei, Amar Rab Amnun Rishmei Deula. Oy Mahai Rab Meir. Rab Meir used to say, Kol hamashanea mimatbeya shetov v'chachamim begittin. Anybody who makes one change in the formula that the chachamim put together when it comes to get, and you did one mistake, then if she got married again with such a get, Yoitzi, she gets divorced. Vlad Mamza. Rab Meir is so strict that there's no making amends from this kind of mistake. Okay. So